Yeah, so I'll start from the very, very beginning. I was born in India, 6 pounds, 5 ounces. Took me from the hospital. It was an auto rickshaw at that time. She took me home, put me on the cradle, went back. Now I'll fast forward a little bit more to my adolescence. And I grew up in India in a city called Mumbai. And so my journey getting to CFO has taken a pretty much of it's a very eclectic journey. It's not for the faint of hearts, but I will share it nevertheless because it may spark some it may ignite some spark of inspiration in all of you. So let me share something which you may enjoy.
Are you going
Uh,
to share your screen?
I'll share my screen for just a little bit. Now, this is for Indians out there. This is like it's called. He's the king of Bollywood. His name is Shah Rukh Khan. And growing up in India in the 90s, my sole ambition in life was to design clothes for actors like him and pretty women like what you see on the screen right now. Now, so you have to realize, my parents are, not that orthodox, but they said, Mitesh, you can do anything you want as long as you can become a doctor, engineer, or an accountant. You can do anything you want. It reminds me of this Navy SEALs, right? They say you can wear any damn thing to work as long as it's a blue suit. So I was faced with a conundrum like that. Uh, and of course, I was rejected. I did not, um, was not able to do this passion of mine. They call it in India, they call this the tailor. And it used to rub me the wrong way. My mom would say, you'll become a tailor. I was like, what's a tailor? I want to become a fashion designer. So didn't quite work out. Life took a turn. And then I joined law. And my grandfather had a law practice. So I studied law. So here's my turn of events. At law, my job as an intern was to listen to how my grandfather would defend criminals. And I was like, holy crap. I don't think I can do that. So I studied my law, didn't quite like it, then took a turn to become an accountant because three choices, right? Doctor, engineer, accountant. So I chose the accounting path. Did it for, I would say, 4, 5, 6 years. And then I was thinking, like, it's all backward. I am auditing people and life has moved on. So what am I doing with my life? So then I moved. So I did that for 4 or 5 years, didn't quite like it. Then I moved to Wall Street. Why? Because fashion designing, Wall Street men were the best dressed men in the entire industry. So I wanted to be best
So it
dressed.
always comes back to fashion design, it seems.
Exactly. So I did that for multiple years. And then I got a chance to move to the industry at RingCentral, where I've done multiple roles at RingCentral in accounting, in finance, as a treasurer, as a corporate controller, before I got the top job as a CFO. And that journey, why do I tell you this story of mine? Because I feel these wide variety of experiences I have garnered throughout my life, they do make me a better problem solver. I
Mhm.
am able to think from multiple dimensions. Like, the best analogy I have is in life, there's a glass and the sunlight passes through the glass, it just passes through the glass. But if you're a prism, you bounce off different elements of light. So if you are a prism or a diamond with multiple facets, you are able to connect with people in a different manner. You can solve problems differently. You can bring fresh thinking to the table. So, for example, look, uh, let's talk about accounting. When I was in accounting, I learned, and again, it's all in the subconscious mind, right? You are learning as you go. You don't realize at that time, that that's happening to you. But when you connect the dots backward, as Steve Jobs would say, right? You can always connect the dots backward, not forward. When you do connect it backward, you feel, okay, accounting, I learned to deal with executives, how to gather information from them. At Wall Street, or in Wall Street, I learned to focus on the critical few versus the trivial many, and focus on what really matters. In law, I learned to really focus on the details, and of course to fight criminals, right? I also learned that part, which is great. So I think when you put it all together, once all of you who are amazing, I applaud all of you to doing working and learning at the same time. It is so fantastic. I mean, as you traverse through your journeys and you garner different experiences, I think at some point those experiences come to life, and then you can really, really make an impact. So it's sort of, that's me in a nutshell.
Wow.
And
So
please,
you,
and please, Rupal, don't forget, I do know how to fight criminals. See, that's the main thing.
well, I'll keep that in mind. So you said two really important things that I want to dig into a little bit. You said that I'm summarizing here, but you said your past helps to inform your future. And it also sounds like over the years, even if you're not doing exactly what you set out to do in the beginning, all the while you've been sort of accumulating critical skills.
Well put. See, this is why you can so elegantly paraphrase what I said for 5 minutes.
And how does all of that culminate in what you do today? In what you do today, are you informed by your past? Do you continue to pull from that toolbox from over the years to be a successful CFO today?
Absolutely right. Look, every decision, I'm so fortunate as a CFO, every decision flows through you, right? Because everything involves money for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm at the epicenter of every decision that's made. And yeah, having been in Wall Street, I understand capital allocation. I understand how to communicate to invest with investors, what really they want to hear as a storyline. Having the law background, I can review contracts really well. I can point out things which maybe an accountant would not be able to point out. So I think all these things, you can never plan for this, right? At least I do believe that, right? If you just have to gather these experiences, and I guarantee each one of you, they will come into play at some
Hmm.
point.
So I want to take us into this topic that's a topic we've been talking about tonight in our class, which is inspiring shared vision. You know, you've had, maybe if you could just spend a minute talking about some of the experiences you've had. I have the privilege of having known Mitesh now for a number of years, and he's had the opportunity both in a board of directors position and in an operating role in taking a company from being a private company through IPO to being a public company. And in doing that, I'm guessing it's incredibly important to inspire a shared vision, not only among the employees in your company, but among the investor community. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of establishing that vision and how you went about doing that in both of these cases, in an operating role and then as a member of the board?
Sure, sure. So before we move on to a shared vision, let's define vision. What is vision, right? And then we'll talk about shared vision. Like vision is pretty simple, right? If you say it in lay people's term, we all want to move forward in life in the most efficient manner possible, right? A simple vision for everybody in life, whatever that move forward may mean to each one of us, right? And in business, mostly it's like, okay, I want to build a large business, I want to scale, and I want to withstand volatility. That's sort of the vision, right? Now, to become a scaled organization, to withstand uncertainty, you need to have, you need to look forward, right? What are leaders paid for? Like I'm paid for looking 4 years or 5 years over the horizon 3, right? Because I am in a very fortunate position to set strategy for RingCentral or any other company I'm at. So as all of us traverse up in our lives, the key element is to be forward looking. Now, a simple lesson, don't have to look very forward. Life teaches you all these experiences. I've learned skiing coming here, and a simple lesson is when you're skiing, you first need to know where you're going, right? Before you go down the slope. So very similar. You first need to know where you're going. That's your vision. And then you share the vision with people, the forward-looking vision, because it does a couple of beautiful things. So it does about 2 or 3 things, and then there are amazing outcomes from that. So first thing is shared vision equals shared ownership. You're
Hmm.
automatically transferring, you're doing it subliminally, but you're transferring the ownership to you're spreading the ownership. That's number one. Number two, you're getting buy-in from people. Like my job, I cannot do it myself, right? I need an entire company to be a 7,000 people. Everybody needs to row in the same direction. So you get buy-in. Number two. Number three, you make people part of the solution. That's super important. Everybody needs to be part of the solution. And when those three things happen, Rupal, people gain trust, and then the outcome benefits all constituents. And as we know in life and in business, you are always catering to multiple constituents. So that's how you can thread the needle. And you've got so many examples littered all around about the shared vision. Like one of my most favorite, if you can indulge me in an example, if it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I don't know if you've seen this movie or read this book called Hidden Figures. It's about this three beautiful women. This movie set in 1960s when there was segregation, and US had a Sputnik moment where we were competing, we being the US, were competing to put a man in space because why? Because Russia did so. Now at that time, it was Jim Crow segregation, and but with the shared vision to put a man in the space, that vision really took over. And once you have an inspired shared vision, all boundaries were broken, all silos were broken, because at that time, like it's sad to see that colored women to go to the restroom had to travel 30 minutes. But because of the shared vision, white men were able to break down the boundaries and take the help of these three colored women to put John Glenn in space. So that's the power of shared vision, right? I mean, look at today's world, COVID, right? We cannot be living in a more polarized political environment. I think it's non-controversial statement I'm making, saying it politely. But the cause to get people injected, vaccinated, this America Rescue Plan, which Biden's putting forth $2 trillion, got passed because we have a shared vision of humanity.
Yeah.
So I think you can do so many things. So the key point is if you have a shared vision, and if you repeat it and you share it and you get people's buy-in, like magical things can happen. Sorry, didn't mean to interject.
No. I want to take it down to you. I'd love for you to share your example, your personal example and experience in building a shared vision at your company, at one of your companies. How hard was it? How easy was it? And what did you learn from it?
Yeah, at RingCentral, we serve. We are in business communication, so we have a product just like this. And the interesting part is that in a business model like RingCentral, everybody needs to have a role to play. So in business, what do you do first? You make a product. But in the old world, you made a product, you just sold it, and nobody else would get involved. Right now, in the cloud world, as we call it, everybody is responsible. You sell the product, there's post sales, there's finance, there's legal. So the central shared vision, Rupal, for RingCentral is the customer. We need to see the customer become happy. And in all hands, the central point is the customer. How do you then come together to make the customer most successful? So that's the trick. And it's never easy. So I'll tell you a downside of shared vision. And even in my team, it's harder to get a shared vision. It's a time sink sometimes because you have to invest a lot of time.
Yeah.
Instead of having like one-on-one meetings with people and you can just cut to the chase, right? Versus the shared vision, it takes upfront investment.
Yeah.
But once you get there, I mean, you totally decentralize and scale the organization. So it's super powerful in my mind.
Yeah. So those are some important things that you said. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of effort. It's worth the effort because then you have all these ambassadors, right? You have all these folks who believe and feel that shared ownership. I think that's a great point. What's perhaps the biggest challenge that you faced in developing a shared vision from, say, the naysayers? Everyone sort of struggles from time to time in this area. Can you think of a time where it's been exceedingly difficult in building that shared vision or bringing a department on board with you, and how did you overcome that?
Yeah, it's not so much as difficult versus the power of repetition,
Mm.
right? You may feel it's like redundant, but unless you say it enough, the victory is when your shared vision, you have an employee coming and telling you, "Hey, did you know that, Mitesh?" I was like, "Ah, you got it now." Yeah, right. So
So
when
when
you
you hear it played back to you,
it's,
you know it's stuck.
it's done, right? So I think that's what it is. It does take a lot of time to build. It sometimes, unfortunately, the shared vision has to come from tone at the top. It has to come from the top, and then you start coalescing people, building consensus. And I think, if you're logical, if you entertain a diverse points of view, and it's never one way, right? You can inject a lot of different points of view from different genders, different races, and that's what makes it really special. Because in every organization, as you scale, you will have people or constituents with different races, genders, and facets of life. So I think that's what it takes to build it.
So speaking of that, on that idea of having truly inclusive and diverse organizations, you've been at this a while, and you've worked in accounting, you've worked on Wall Street, you're now in tech, from small tech to big tech, and I know you also sit on the board of tech companies. You've obviously seen change over the years. How do you see the current state for women in the workplace and for women in leadership roles? What's it been like in some of the companies that you've worked in over the years?
Yeah, you know what? This is a sad reality, and I'm a CFO, so numbers don't lie, right? The we may as much as we want, but the fact is that women are not at the table as much as they should be. And again, in the spirit of numbers don't lie, if you look at entry level jobs, about 47% are women, 53% men, like sort of half and half. But as you keep going towards the C suite, that 50% or 47 drops to 20%. Now, I have a hard time believing that these entry level women and men who are 50-50, men are just so much freaking smarter than women. I just cannot fathom that, right? So there are more things at play. There are exogenous factors at play that has led to this, right? And so I think that's the cause you and I believe in, because we need to change that. We need the pendulum to swing the other way.
Yeah.
Now, that's one. Look at what's happened with COVID. I mean, COVID's not, it's taken a toll on all of us, right? I mean, it's not easy on me. It's not easy on my wife. And, it's stressful for me as well, right? Because there's no outlet. So I'm telling you, it's not easy for me. But, the caregiver's tax for women is much higher. Like, I don't know. I just read a stat the other day that like one-fourth of the women are planning to leave the workforce because of that. So that's not cool. So I guess and we all share equal responsibility for this, I feel.
Yeah. So I love that you just said that, equal responsibility. Absolutely. And, we always talk about the fact that women in leadership is not about just women, nor is it just about just men. It's about all of us. And it's about good business in addition to good practice and just good for the world. So let's talk a little bit about some of the things that are going on at RingCentral. Do you, and before we talk about RingCentral, let me ask you, do you consider yourself, do you label yourself as an ally to women and as an ally to the notion of gender equality in the workplace?
Do I label myself as that? Um, how do you label it? Meaning, do
Do
I
you
tell?
do you consider yourself an ally?
Absolutely right.
How do
I
you
mean,
define it? How do you define an ally in the workplace?
exactly right. So ally in the workplace comes. in multiple facets, right? You listen to people, and I'll come to the women question in a second. You listen to people, you build empathy, and ultimately, my job as CFO is to get the work done. And you can get a lot more done with a kind word versus just a gun itself, right? So there's also that dynamic in play that you have to build relationships, you have to build allies as you move up. Now, as far as women, look, talk is cheap, right? I can talk all day long that, hey, I'm an ally, I believe in this cause, but it's like, what have you done, right? And what have we done collectively? So at least, look, I don't claim to have all the answers. In fact, I claim to have no answers. But what I've done, at least my small part at RingCentral, I am the executive sponsor of the women leadership, and we meet once a month where we just talk about problems, what it takes for women to get to the next level, some tricks of the trade, what's worked for me. And there's so many things where you just have to raise your hand sometimes, and sometimes I've seen women are shy. So there's just coaching like that and just being available for them if they have a problem to just ask a question to me in private. That goes a long way. So I've just done my little part. I'm not like some big time women advocate, or I don't have banners outside Silicon Valley, but in my own little way I try to help.
Well, I think you mentioned an important part, which is where it starts, which is making yourself available and listening. Those are certainly two very big things. In fact, I'll let everybody know for this last question before we go to Q&A. So Mitesh is a little bit sort of underplaying this, but he called me a couple months ago, a few months back, and said, hey, listen, we're having this huge event, and I'm going to go in and talk to all of these women at RingCentral. And I want to make sure that my messages resonate, and I want to make sure that I'm really pulsing this community of women leaders, so that I'm giving them what they need from me. And so he called me and we had this whole conversation about what he might say and the things that he might talk about. Number one, because he cared about the community. And number two, he didn't want to mess it up. But number three, he wanted to really give valuable tools. And so making yourself available and listening are two really important things. Can you talk a little bit about that first of its kind event at RingCentral and how it went and the role that you played?
Yeah, for sure. It was a great event. I will say it was a very powerful event. I got so many, I don't know, kudos or, high fives, virtual high fives for doing it. And, it's just simple things like, acknowledging, right? Acknowledging that we have an issue or a problem is amazing. And all kinds of questions emanate from this discussion. As simple as, what should I be doing to get promoted? How should I get to the next level? How should I deal with an issue where my manager feels X or Y? Just that open form of collaborating together in a safe environment. See, that's another key part. To build culture, you have to build safety, and that safety then needs to be provided that they are comfortable talking about their problems or their issues with me, and they know it's safe, right? So I think once you create that safe environment, like really, really good things start to happen. And in a way, think about it, it's great for RingCentral, because if we have these women who are more productive, more jazzed up, I mean, ultimately, the company benefits, the shareholders benefit, we all make more money. And I'm a CFO, I want to make money. You know that, right?
So it's good. So good for the community and good for business at the end. And it's possible to have both.
And I think in corporate parlance, I've heard the word win-win. So it's sort of a win-win, not a zero-sum game.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so you went from wanting to be a fashion designer to dabbling in law and busting criminals to accounting to your CFO role. You're currently the CFO, you sit on a board, you're continuing your journey as an ally, and your focus has really been on, hey, it's about the little things as much as it is about the big things. And talk is cheap, it's about action and really putting your money where your mouth is, no pun intended. So Now, where you are today, Mitesh, if you could talk to your younger self, you have a whole group of students here in front of you. What are some of the top two or three things that what are the top two or three lessons from your career that you would tell your younger self and tell this group?
By the way, you forgot a very important element, which is Wall Street when you were summarizing my career.
Oh, sorry, Wall Street, Wall Street.
Because Wolf of Wall Street. Come on. Okay, but two or three things. Interesting question. Yeah. Okay. So I have three or maybe four. I'll top off with a bonus if I can think of one more. So the first one I feel is you need to know as you move up. If I were to give any advice to enterprising students like all of us here, is need to know what really matters as you go up the executive curve or the C-suite in the corporate ladder. And Rupal, you can attest to this. You really need to know your audience, know what matters. Executives have a short span of attention. You need to really be succinct. It's like Mark Twain, right? I didn't have time to write you a short letter, so I wrote you a long one, right? So it's exactly like that. You need to prepare, rehearse, be punchy, be succinct, and be like Mark Twain. So good company there. So that's number one. Second is, we all at some point want to blend in but stand out, right? That's the game. That's the trick in a way. So how do we stand out, right? I think at some point in our career journeys, you have to, if I were to again give some advice, is at some point you have to take risks. You need to know what risks. I mean, I took too many risks. Like, I moved from one thing to the other. It worked out for me. But, you know, take risks, a little bit of a risk where you can stand out. Because if nobody, took risks, like one of my favorite quote is, if nobody took risks, then Michelangelo would have painted the Sistine floor, not the ceiling. So you have to take risks at the right time. And number three, I'd say is this is a controversial one. Okay, I mean it can go 50-50. I believe in it, but it's a controversial one. That you play to your strengths. Don't focus on your weaknesses too much. Don't try to improve your weakness. You double down on your strengths. And like if you see all the professional athletes like Usain Bolt, he doesn't try to do a marathon. He knows he's good in 100 meters. He's going to double down on that. So I have tried to play to my strengths, which is financial planning, which is Wall Street, which is messaging, which is capital allocation. I don't try to worry about my weaknesses too much because life is short. This is a controversial one, okay, in my mind. Uh, but it's worked for me, and I would do that all day long. And last one, I feel for all the women in the room here, I do definitely feel this is an important one. And I tell my daughter this all the time. She's 14 years old. That anytime I ask her, I mean, I've seen a stark difference in my son and my daughter. That my son, if you ask him, even if he doesn't know anything, he'll be like, "Yeah, I know it. No problem. No big deal. I'm good." If I ask her, she'll find like 15 things why she would say no. So in my mind, the last one is you got to be comfortable to get to the path to yes versus just saying no to yourselves. I think we sometimes shortchange ourselves. So those are the four ones. You asked for three, but I gave you a bonus one because I like you so much.
Thanks, Mitesh. That's a great one. I love that, and I wholeheartedly agree with the strengths and weaknesses piece, and also the instead of why no, just really think how yes. And so that's a great one as well. Thank you for sharing all of those, and thanks for sharing your experiences in that fun, slightly unorthodox way. That was really fun. Thanks. So with